Hey, good morning, FCF. We're going to continue in our study through Second Peter. Now, today, Peter, he's going to really introduce a new subject. He spent a lot of time in chapter 2 focused on the false teachers, what they teach, what their character is like, how to discern them. He's very, very disturbed about the thought that somebody would, give a different message about the truth about God, the truth about Christ. He was concerned about division and those sorts of things, and so he didn't hesitate to point out that there are such things as false teachers with bad motives and bad teaching, and they bring hurt on people because what we believe really matters. It affects the way we develop, it affects the way we live, the decisions we make, and of course the people that are connected to us. But he's going to turn the corner now, and pretty much through the rest of the book of 2 Peter chapter 3, his focus is on the closing of the age, and I mean the real total closing of the age. There's the closing of the age when Christ returns a second time, but then there is a 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth called the millennium. We read about that in Revelation chapter 20, and then after that 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth, there is yet another judgment that kind of once and for all cleanses the earth of evil. You have the great white throne judgment in Revelation 20, and then in Revelation 21, you have God creating a new heaven and a new earth. That's the eternal age, no more sickness, sorrow, pain, or death, and things like that. So he's introducing not the second coming, but he's introducing what comes after the 1,000-year reign of Christ and the final kind of fire cleansing of the earth. Okay, let me get started. So we're in chapter 3, verse 5. Now he has, in verse 3, just so that you recall, he's talked about that people will come and be scoffing. He says, first of all, you must understand that in the last days, scoffers will come, scoffing and following their own evil desires. They'll say, where's the coming he promised? Ever since our fathers died, everything goes on as it has from the beginning of creation. Verse 5, here we go. But they deliberately forget that long ago by God's word the heavens existed and the earth was formed out of water and by water. He's looking back to Genesis 1 where it says the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the deep, that the earth was water covered. Really sounds like a judgment had occurred on earth. That's a whole different subject another time. Verse 6. By these waters also the world that at that time was deluged and destroyed. So now he's going from the beginning when God separated the earth from the waters to all the way to Noah's day when God took the same waters and intervened in human history, brought a surprise judgment. And that's Peter's point, that when people are scoffing and saying, where's this promise coming, meaning the second coming of Christ in that case, Peter's reminding him, he says, they deliberately, they don't want to think about the realization that God's there, that he promises to intervene in human history again. They don't want to believe that, so they're trying to devise reasons to mostly convince themselves. So they say, where's this coming? It's been a long time now. And the irony is, when Peter wrote this, it was about 65 A.D., and Jesus had only been, raised probably 35 years or so. So the temple was still even standing. It hadn't been torn down. Anyway, let me pick up. Verse 7, by the same word, the present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, being kept for a day of judgment and destruction of ungodly men. So he's saying that just like the world was once deluged, cleansed to a degree by water, it's going to be cleansed, deluged again, but not a flood, but with fire. Now, when you really, really pin this down, this is not talking about the second coming of Christ. This is talking about Revelation chapter 20. And in fact, I put myself a little note here, if you want to look this up on your own, Revelation 20, verse 9 and 20, verse 11. And you can see this is after Christ has returned. He's ruled and reigned on earth for 1,000 years, but then there's another mass rebellion of mankind. Satan is allowed to tempt mankind once again, and that's where this fire intervention of God occurs. Now, his point is that people that just simply don't want God in their life will try to find reasons to convince themselves and others like themselves that there's no evidence that God's ever intervened, nor should we have any reason to think that he ever will intervene. The notion being that, hey, life is going to go on just like it's always went on, so, just forget all this God talk because we don't buy it. We can see nothing's really changed. Peter's reminding them they conveniently forget these things. Conveniently, the notion being that they don't want to think about the realization that God is not going to let evil continue forever. He's allowing evil for a little while so that he can abolish it forever, but he will intervene. He'll intervene, first of all, with the second coming of Christ. Then 1,000 years after that, he'll intervene with kind of the final fire purging of the earth, the judgment of those that are forever rebellious against God, and then in the book of Revelation chapter 21, the creation finally of the eternal state of things, a new heaven and a new earth that says God will create, wherein there's going to be dwelling righteousness, and there's not going to be any more sin, sorrow, sickness, pain, or death. Okay, we'll pick this up again tomorrow, and you're going to see that he's still going to be fixated on the same theme of this future intervention of God after 1,000 years after the return of Christ. Thank you.